All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. To my regular listeners, you already know how I get down. Mr. Teamwork, Mr. Innovative Teamwork over here. Always be connecting. I have a lady on named Kendall Wallace, and she is doing some absolutely incredible things. And one of the things I was actually refraining from telling her this story before we started recording because I wanted to make sure it actually got captured on camera. Is when I first got to college, Kendall, I had a coach, his name is Ken Sparks. He's the late Ken Sparks, and he was like built Carson Newman football program, right? This is in East Jefferson City, Tennessee. And one of the things he would do is he would take us on little retreats during camp, during two-a-days, doing little things like, maybe we'll go and pick up trash, or maybe we'll go play basketball, or maybe we'll just do something as a team that was just completely way left, that had nothing to do with football, and it bonded us so much. And you have an organization that is all about that takes that to the next step. So before I make the intro too long, I want to just make sure you come on, you kind of introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on, Ashwan. Really appreciate it. So, hi everyone. Like Ashwan said, my name is Kendall Wallace. I am the CEO and lead facilitator of Executive Offsites. And what we do is team building experiences. We really facilitate dynamic workshops and offsites to help teams understand one another so that each person feels seen, heard, and valued while having an energetic and authentically aligning experience that's like next level. So it really comes down to a couple things that we focus on. Number one is just really cleaning up any team dynamics that are not serving the team. Number two is having a tremendous experience that's really connected and not kind of the BS experiences that a lot of quote unquote team building is.
You're allowed
The
to say
third
bullshit, so
Oh, I can? I can cuss?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah. All right. Super. So yeah, it's kind of BS sometimes when it's like checking the box and
Mhm.
people they'll go have escape rooms and don't get me wrong, or dinner and drinks. And don't get me wrong, like it's better than nothing, okay? But it's like at the end of it, you know what I hate is I hate leaving an experience like that and having people question in their minds, like, why'd we do that? Or, note zero debrief to like talk about how it relates to work and how we can work better together. I just think having had many experiences where you have these team build experiences and then you still haven't resolved like the quiet tension in the org is
Mhm.
such a missed opportunity because real teammateship and real, working together as a team is resolving some of that, is being human with one another and, having the team do the output, but also operate as one unit. So that's what I
I'm
help
glad
teams
you
do.
start. The thing is, I'm glad you started there because you have a background, a very extensive background in dealing with clients, and you're doing things for other organizations. So I think it's the best place to kind of hit the rewind button a little bit because you don't wake up one morning and just decide to do so much. I know this for a fact to decide to do so much for teamwork. You don't just wake up one morning and say, look, I want to create a culture. I want to do things for organizations in which their teams are working better and things are being moved in a cohesive unit. So talk a little bit about your background, about how you were able to come up with such a kind of a breakthrough and such a unique concept and where it all started and things like that. And by the way, we don't have any limits, no time limits on this show. So you could free to take as much time as you need.
Oh, sweet. Thank you. So I have a background working in big tech.
Mhm.
I was at Meta for 4 years and doing UX research. So I really have always loved people. I've always loved interviewing people, figuring out what makes them tick, figuring out their problems,
Now,
working
when you say Meta, that's the same as Facebook, right?
Facebook. Yep,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And working with others to really be able to collaborate and come up with a great idea and bring it to fruition.
Mhm.
And I love that. And, you know, in such a big company, even me, Miss Enthusiastic, Miss Cheerleader,
Hmm.
I wasn't a cheerleader. I was did other sports, but still like the cheerleader essence in my being.
Hmm.
Slowly got like it's like that flame slowly got diminished when
Hmm.
we'd have tension in the org, in our actual team. Here we go. We have a
Yeah.
deadline. All right, everybody, like we got to do some road mapping. We got to figure out what we're going to build the next half.
Right.
Here's the deadline. And then, oh, by the way, the team of 10, oh yeah, you three people who like may think that the product needs to go in a different direction, like
Hmm.
left those meetings be not feeling seen, heard, and valued. So
Right.
it's like, so then you'd see the next half, like people would switch teams because, they felt like they weren't progressing in their career.
Hmm.
And in my case, I was actually fired for not being a good teammate. And that was a wake-up call for me,
Right.
mostly because I looked at the way I was behaving with my, this teammate of mine where we had, I was taking the research-driven approach. Okay, I'm doing all this work. I'm doing all this research. It's saying to go in this one direction. And then basically the quarterback of the team is
Hmm.
saying, I don't care what the research says. We're going in this other direction.
Hmm.
And so when you have things like that, there's innate conflict that can happen on these teams. And the more I've learned about systems theory, the more I see how it's built in. Like you see how sales conflicts with marketing,
Hmm.
product can conflict with research, product
Right.
can conflict with marketing.
Right.
And it's like unless these little cracks are resolved, what ends up
Hmm.
happening, like in my case, is, being told that no matter what I did, my research was not going to influence the product decision. And oh, by the way, my ability to get promoted is based on my ability to influence the product direction. No
Hmm.
wonder it's like those survival instincts kick in, and it freaking
Right.
was frustrating beyond belief, to the
Right.
point that, you know, she wanted to talk to my manager. I said, "All right, two can play at this game." And so
Right.
what starts out as just minor tension or like
Yeah.
minor kind of things can get really exasperated and become personal. And so
Yeah.
when that happened, it was a huge wake-up call for me. And it also just let me see how many freaking missed opportunities there were where the
Hmm.
team could have actually done something about it. We
Hmm.
could have had those product alignment meetings where people actually left aligned, where we looked around the table and actually had everybody contribute. But like it's just the way it was done. So that's why it's a real personal and purposeful mission that I'm on now. Is like I don't think anybody should have to have their livelihood taken away based on their inability to resolve tension with their teammates. And that's why
Yes.
it's very important for organizations to invest in these opportunities. And it's very important too to have, an experience where they're all leaving feeling seen, heard, and valued, feeling like they're part of the team. And it's even more difficult in this, distributed work culture that we're in, where the feeling of belonging really needs to be intentionally and deliberately created,
Hmm.
or it's not going to happen. Like the whole idea of crossing your fingers and hoping conversations that need to happen at a dinner and drinks actually happen is really naive in my book.
Yeah, and you got to understand when you grow, the biggest transition from when you leave school and you enter the quote unquote working world is now you have people who have their own agenda. They're coming in, they want this, they want this, they want a certain salary, they want that, and they are not necessarily thinking about too much about the people that they're working with as they're applying for these jobs. So when you go and you apply for this job, you feel like, okay, I deserve a certain salary. This is my agenda. And the person next to me, hey, it's not, there wasn't a process for me to get the job with this person. Everything is so brand new. And if there isn't anything in place to where you can start taking people's agendas and aligning the people's agendas, just like you said, the whole shit is going to blow up if you don't make sure you take care of those little things. And I do want to make sure we dive into your sports background a little bit, because the acronym, the thing that I came up with that built this show, that built everything I'm about now, is Swiftly. And it came from when I played football, and they would divide us into three groups. It was the skilled workers, which were the receivers, the running backs, the DBs, the people that would make great athletes in every sport. I named those the skilled workers, the people that are just great skill, whether you're a cosmetologist or whether you're a plumber, you get paid on your skill, right? And then it's the well-informed workers, like the quarterbacks, the linebackers, the tight ends, and you're responsible, or in the working place where it'll be like the managers, right? They're responsible for putting the skilled workers in the right situation. And then the front team workers, that was group C. Those are the big boys, the fat guys that no one really gave a shit about unless they were giving up the sack or, they were holding or something like that. And those are the people that you see in life that are cleaning roads and, fixing ditches and all those kinds of things. And I have it where you add ly, where you're moving swiftly, where you lift yourself. So if you want to be a great worker, you got to make sure, if you're a well-informed person, you have some of the skill, you have some of the, front team in you and all that kind of stuff. And all of that came, Kendall, from my background as an athlete and actually being immersed in it. And I want to hear a little bit about your background in sports and how it was able to kind of transition into this world now where it's, like you said, it's dog eat dog. You get one person having this small conflict with this person, and next thing you know, it's not fixed. It's not like, the solution isn't there. Next thing you know, somebody eventually wants to talk to this one's manager, and it just creates a bunch of tension that's not resolved. So, I know that was a loaded question, but with that, can you just talk to us a little bit about your sports background and how that helps your day to day and how that helps your research and stuff?
Sure thing, yeah. Thanks for asking me this. I've yet to be able to answer this particular question on a podcast, so this is fun for me. So I grew up
This
the
is You're on the
young
#1 show for innovative teamwork for a reason, girl.
yo, seriously. Um I grew up the youngest of two brothers, right? And so me being the only
Yeah,
girl, I didn't have a choice but to be athletic. At least that was
I know
just,
that's right. Yes,
you
ma'am.
know, people always said growing up, actually, you throw like a boy. And I was like, no, I'm redefining how I throw like a
Mhm.
girl. Thank you very much. I'm gonna own that. And
There you go.
I mean, we're talking like, I was the quarterback of the high school powder puff team all 4 years. It's the only time the seniors ever lost.
Now,
And
did you grow up in Hawaii, or where
I
were
grew up
you
in
playing, or
Richmond,
where'd you
Virginia.
grow up?
Yeah, Richmond, Virginia. I
Oh,
was
okay, yeah,
the
I'm from Summer Springs, Maryland.
Oh, nice. Yeah, okay. So I grew up,
Yeah,
I was in kindergarten, the only girl on the all boys baseball team. And my mom always tells the story of
there
like,
you go.
these little boys being like, wow, she can throw. It's like, yeah, that's, the whole 10,000 hours thing about becoming an expert in something. Like, I feel like I just spent
Yep.
so much time with my
Malcolm Gladwell,
brothers.
Outliers, man.
Yeah.
10,000 hours before you become good.
I mean, my childhood was just playing catch so much that now it's just like it's
Hmm.
innate, it's in me. So in any case,
Hmm.
my sports though were uh, really ran the gamut from baseball, softball, soccer, but really where I excelled was basketball and tennis. And so tennis carried all the way through, and that was more of a singles sport. I will say, one thing that comes to mind to answer your question is really mindset. Roger Federer talks a lot
Yes.
about like the three steps in transitioning between points. Number one, feeling the emotion for the previous point. Uh, number two, like shifting out of it, and number three, getting ready for what's next. The next point. And I will say, so I put a lot of pressure on myself, and honestly, I didn't have the best example too of mental toughness. My older brother would yell at himself on the tennis court, and now I see how actually damaging that is mindset wise. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't yell. Like that is not the way. And But to answer your question too, one of the things we did, I was, always in high school, number one singles, number one doubles, all 4 years. And in my doubles, I remember with my tennis partner, we would high five after every point. And it's still something I take into my work, my being. I'm not gonna lie, the high fives can heal and bring teammateship in so many ways. Like, it is so awesome to, even after somebody's down or detached or they make a mistake, bring them back into the fold
Yeah.
with a high five
Right.
is so undervalued. And like, actually, it's a
Mm-hmm.
symbolic thing. I mean, it's the essence of bringing someone back into the fold. And I actually interviewed a
Right.
mental skills coach for the Yankees, who was there during Joe Torre era when they won uh three and 5 years, three championships. And one thing he said it was so important how those guys would, if someone made a mistake, if somebody had a bad game, it was so important that good coaches would then notice that detachment and actually acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
it. And I think that's a key component that also applies to the workplace. It's like, imagine examples of people getting passed up for promotion, people messing up a little bit.
Right.
Like, these teams, people have the ability to get more and more detached. And I think the absolute
Mm-hmm.
aspect that really helps is to acknowledge when that's happening. Don't just ignore it, but it's like, hey, I noticed this, that you're kind of checking out a little bit. Like, is there something I can do to bring you back in? Like, just having a discussion with a teammate around that can be super healing and super
Mm-hmm.
helpful. So I think that's something there. And
No.
then the other thing I'll just mention real quick is just, he also mentioned in
Yeah.
that Joe
Sorry.
Torre era, one of the things they did, which I do in my offsites, is really just bring the human. Like, we're humaning with one another. What I mean by that is, like, they would have
Right.
discussions about what was going on in their lives, or like what inspired them to do what they do. And like, they can be to varying degrees of personal, like, we don't have to have a huge deep share, but understanding your teammates and what's important to them, what inspires them to show up to work,
Mm-hmm.
where they want to be in 5 years. Like, these are the conversations that I
Right.
found many teams are not having. And that's the actual thing that's going to make you sit in the trenches and really support one another. That's the stuff that's like, oh wait, you want to be like presenting it, to the CEO in 2 years time or whatever. I'm going to bring you in. Oh wow, I see that. I'll bring you in on this other presentation I'm doing. Like, that's the stuff that teammates can start to do for one
Mm-hmm.
another to really help create those
Right.
opportunities. And that's what creates like the rallying around and the real trust, which is the number one trait for high performing teams.
Right. So when you and thanks for explaining that as well, because I remember reading Joe Torre's book, The Yankee Years, and there was actually a point there, Brian Cashman, who no, it was Brian Cashman. He was talking. It was actually Jordan Steinbrenner's book. I read a lot of sports books, but Brian Cashman talked about how he wanted to be on a 1 year contract. Like, he wanted to really prove that he was good enough to do the job. He wanted to prove that it was really what he was all about. And the question I actually have for you is, how are you able to turn that into the business that you've been able to turn that into? Because what we're talking about in terms of teamwork and in terms of caring about other people, it can be a really tough nut to crack when you're talking about trying to get people to see it like that. Because once you have reached a promotion, or you making a certain amount of money, and you feel like you know it all, it's really difficult to teach someone who is a quote unquote leader how to be a better leader. Sometimes it can be a real challenge to just figure out, what are the things I'm going to do. How, first of all, how am I going to get the clients, and then what are the things that are scientifically proven to do in these retreats, and how am I going to approach it? How are you able to manage and create all of that stuff going into what it is you do now?
So number one, when I run an offsite, I will survey the entire team and figure
Hmm.
out what the team challenges are. And number two, I will then follow up with like a snowball sampling, random sampling of different people to understand, have follow-up conversations and understand a little bit better about what's the team dynamic function that's challenging. From there, there's a couple things. I mean, number one, energy and leadership is, we can go through our 20s, 30s, and even early 40s. Actually, there was somebody I was working with who was late 50s and, be quote unquote successful, but not yet embody the type of leadership that people would follow to the next company or people would really trust to, have their back.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I actually was thinking I worked with a team where this guy was late 50s, running this org, and I was like, what have I got to teach him? He's got 20 plus years more business experience than me. And then I
Right.
realized that was one of the big lacking things. And I think there's this embodied kind of almost safety that some leaders or especially new leaders can lack. And especially when there's problems or conflict, they'll kind of interject themselves and try and fix it versus the
Right.
thing that they need to do is actually coach people on how to resolve it themselves and then also hold people accountable. So my process is I take the survey results, I take the results from the in-depth interview, and I analyze and figure out what is which one of the five team dysfunctions is plaguing the particular team. And you can still have a high performing team, but it'll have a dysfunction of some kind that is, preventing it from getting to the next level. You can have high performing, and we got to, if you want to increase the level of performance, if you have the growth mindset, there's always something to work on.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I take a really dynamic approach. So it's a mixture of, as I mentioned earlier, like resolving the team dynamic challenges. And that's a mixture of, creating connection exercises, a blend of head heart, like if you provide too much woo woo, in a row, you'll get too
Yeah.
many eye rolls and too many people that are like, this sucks, this is annoying. And so it's really the reason I use the term
I've seen that.
dynamic.
I've experienced a lot of that because you do get that typical employee that look, I'm just trying to pay my rent. I'm trying to pay my. I don't want to do no extra work and be all that, and just have a bad attitude towards anything that is kind of new. So I definitely hear your point on that one.
Yeah, and that's why I use the term dynamic. Like my offsites, I think that the distinction between me and others is you'll have others just focus on team dynamics in a conference room all day.
Yeah.
You'll have other companies where it's just virtual game and it's just fun. Or you'll have others where it's just an escape room and it's just
Mhm.
fun. And I think that the reason I use that term dynamic is because I blend all of those aspects so that it holds your attention with, okay, cool, we're going to be resolving team conflict or team dynamic tension in the org. We're also going to be creating alignment. There you get your ROI for the execs and the leadership. And at the same time, we're going to be having real fun together. Like, I tend to rely on going outside in nature to do a lot of the work. Sometimes my offsites will go do a sunrise hike in the morning, and then I'll facilitate an exercise at the top of there. That's pretty profound and really gets people to think about where they want to be in 5 years and share it with one another. There's these opportunities to really just enjoy, like it's an investment in individuals. It's an invest like I think when a company invests in individuals, they invest in the human, the person, they're no longer a commodity and this interchangeable mercenary that can go from company to company. And that's what I am out here to create is these like really investing in people experiences because I think when you do that for people and you help make them better versions of themselves both in we'll do things also like breath work. Like it just depends on what the team needs. So I have over 100 exercises at my disposal that I can use that are experiential. Some are head, some are heart, some are, for particular challenges in trust, some are particular challenges of conflict. It depends. We'll use what we need. Some are games actually, but the difference is that the games are followed by a rich debrief that actually analyzes how this relates to work. Because I'm all about moving the needle on the relationships that people have 2 weeks down the road. And that's also why I include a session in all the offsites I do, where the first conflict after the team get together, I'll actually facilitate how they navigate through that. Because one of the big challenges is that a lot of teams will, do an offsite, have a breakthrough experience, and then they go back. Then a couple weeks later, they have a conflict, and then they just forget all they learned, all the
Right.
camaraderie. They go back to square one, and I hate that. Once again, I hate that. So what am I doing? I'm solving for it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to help the team navigate through that, because there's nothing better, in all honesty, than having had tense experiences in the past, and then you have like this experience of navigating conflict. Nobody died, everybody's okay, and then like what
Right.
that does to your nervous system.
Yeah.
Honestly, honest to
Yeah.
God, it's like what it does to your nervous system, and your cortisol levels are much healthier for the person than, this kind of survival fight or flight that happens when we have tense moments.
So what are the how does this whole thing come together logistically for you? Is it like walk us through the process? Well, first of all, I do have to make sure I say this for the listeners. If you are listening in and you're the majority of you guys are business owners, 20 or more employees, that's the majority of people that listen to the show, by the way. uh, it is important that you're solving your clients' problems before they come up. I want to make sure it doesn't get brushed over the point you just made about, hey, you just do this retreat and then 2 weeks later there's a problem. You're already solving for that specific problem. And that's a very important lesson for a lot of people to understand, especially if you're building something new and you want to actually help people, is make sure you're solving your clients' problems before they even know that they're going to have the problem, but you have to be that much of an expert. And the next thing I'm curious about, and this might actually lead into my question actually, is when it comes to the logistics of how you get companies to say yes and actually bring people out to the retreat. Are the retreats only in Hawaii, or they're offsites? How does the
Oh,
whole thing kind of work out for you when when everything goes according to plan?
yeah. So I have four different offerings. One is virtual offsite or virtual. No one wants to be on screens for more than an hour and a half, so it tends to be between an hour and a half, like really at an hour and a half, and at most 2 hours. So there's the virtual offering. There is a half day workshop in person, and then there's the 2 to 3 day offsite that is in person, and then there's a week long one, that really where I can go through basically my 3 offsite trajectory, which really bonds a team exponentially. Usually I do that over the course of maybe even a year, but I can do that in 1 week. So it just depends on what the team has can accommodate budget wise, and what they have time for. But I, one of the benefits of being a small and lean organization is I can actually put my money where my mouth is. I can guarantee that people will have a return on investment in moving the needle on their employee engagement or their money back. I can actually do that. So there's really nothing to lose by having an experience. In fact, I am so confident that for in some cases, I'll even I'll guarantee that they will improve employee engagement, or I'll even pay you afterwards. Like I'm
Right.
so confident in this approach because I've seen it work time and again, where it's not just we're not just improving the team dynamics, we're also having a blast together. And yeah, some of that does involve athletic activities. I'll tell you, I mean, I've borrowed some retreat exercises from ones I've participated in. And you know what one of the most fun was?
Which
You
one?
know, you know, honestly, there is some aspect of getting back to being a kid.
Yeah,
One of the most fun exercises I've done with a team is breaking them up in having relay races in a pool
yeah.
for dive rings. And,
Wow.
just being able to really have like bring back that kid like energy.
Yeah,
That's
they
like my
need it.
specialty. That's the fun. That's the real juice. And that's also, the power to really make people connect. I mean, think about somebody you've not gotten along with or whatever.
Yeah,
One of the missing components a lot of times is not only humanizing them, i.e., not viewing them as a villain, but viewing them as a human, but also
yeah,
having fun together, for God's sake. And so that's
exactly.
why it's so clutch to program that stuff in. And that's why when companies don't do that, I'm like, what are you doing? Like this is
Yeah,
such a missed opportunity. And you got to
right.
have the dynamic approach, I think, to solve. You have some of the challenging conversations, or if needed, and then the connecting, all inspiring aspects.
So the and I'll close you out soon because I do want to be very respectful of your time, but the result that you're guaranteeing, is it going to be that, and you can share any examples that you may have of this as well. I love if you can share specific examples of this. Is the result that they're going to come to a retreat with you and they're going to not have to worry about so much turnover that they had previously? Because one of the things that I've been in fitness, I've been in athletics, I've been in education, and one thing about these industries, Kendall, is that they're so transient. They've gotten to the point where people would go on break. Like they had employees that are so upset that they would go on break and just quit. Like they would not come back. They wouldn't tell them, they would just work abandoned. That's how transient, whether you're talking about fitness, whether you're talking about athletics, or whether you're talking about education, it is such a transient industry. And I'm curious that I'm curious if some of the organizations that I've worked with or worked for, they come to your retreats. Is it going to now? Are you guaranteeing that there'll be less turnover, or they'll know who to let go and who not to let go? What's kind of the results, or some of the results that you could share based on some of the organizations that you've already worked with?
Sure thing. Yeah. So company I worked with last year, uh, they had an increase in employee engagement that was 10%. So after this one multiple day offsite. So what that means is that's
How do
a
you
metric.
measure employee
Yeah, it's
engagement?
a metric. So that one for them was how they measured it was based on the employees wanting to stick around. Like they
Wow.
do a
Okay.
survey as well, how much longer they envision themselves sticking around, how they view their satisfaction in the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
how much they trust the company's future. Those metrics kind of go into that. Um, but those are the main ones. But yeah, what it's really a matter of whatever metric, like whether it's related to turnover or whether it's related to an employee engagement, which is a composite of these different metrics, or whatever it is, related to that employee satisfaction. That's where we can develop the guarantee around for sure. But that also means that
Yeah.
when I tell people to get in an ice bath and do that with their teammates,
Yeah.
that like if they don't do it, there's no, I'm
Yes, and you
that
could say,
that's also
if you don't
there's
participate, look, the owner, you as an owner, that's a clear sign that this is a person that you got to get rid of. All right, and you gotta just be 100% honest. If you love your business, if you love your company, if you love what you do, you cannot be their friend. You gotta have got to create an environment where people are willing to try to go out and do the things that are going to make them uncomfortable. If you're willing, and I'm just going to talk directly to you business owners, if you're willing to spend the money on some professional development and team building, and it's time for you to actually filter out employees, this is a way of filtering people out. If they're not willing to do these things, hey, go find some people that will, because there's a ton of people out there that want to work, that are willing to work, that want to, get better and be a part of something, to be wasting time with folks that are just dead weight. I can't talk to you about it enough. Can be a filtration process towards, look, we'll figure out who's for you and who's not for the company.
Yeah. I mean, barring like understanding that some people have, physical ailments or things, heart conditions, things like that. Okay.
Legitimate.
Right. But like I've had, not to name names, but I've had HR reps who, they really needed to do something out of the box. And, the ice bath and breath work from Wim Hof, like a Wim Hof professional coming in who trains with Wim Hof,
And
was
then wait, so you were
was
able to
floated.
get that person
Oh
like a
yeah.
professional? You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I have
And the
all
thing is,
this.
you're doing
This
the
is
work to get these
game
people here. So
changing.
right, yeah,
Oh
right,
yeah, I have game changing other facilitators at my fingertips.
right.
But so but here's the thing. I mean, you really, when you're, and I guess for anyone listening, I think the
Mm-hmm,
question to really ask yourself is like, if you are an immediate no to certain things, you really got to ask yourself why. And specifically, if you're projecting your own stuff
mm-hmm.
onto your team. So I'll give you an example. Is this HR?
Amen
This
to that. Say that for the people in the back. Say that for the
Yeah.
people in the back, because you're a reflection. Your team is a reflection of you as a leader. You cannot walk around with your bullshit and expect people to just get it. You yourself as a leader, you have got to change, and you got to be the person that you want to see in your employees. I don't know how many times I've said that so many times on this show. I mean, you regular listeners are probably tired. I'm just happy someone else is here that can confirm this shit. You have got to get your shit together as well. My bad. I didn't
It's
mean that. By the way, that happens on this show. When people really start hitting these chords, I get excited. I might cut you off, but
I
please go ahead.
freaking love it. No, I love it. It's be the change you want to see in the world,
Yeah.
and this HR person came to me and was like, we really want to do something out of the box. We're ready for that. We need something that's going to bond our teammates and something that helps them manage their stress levels, right? Helps our team to manage their stress. I'm like, okay, cool. Breath work and ice is kind of a magical, scientifically proven way
Mm-hmm,
to help people manage their stress. And yes, it's out of the box. And so I brought this, bringing in literally the world's best experts on this, and it was in their budget. And the pushback was, no, people can't see each other in swimsuits. And then, to be fair, I didn't say this at the time because I didn't notice it at the time, but I will if this ever comes up again. The
mm-hmm,
person who's pushed back was overweight.
mm-hmm,
So really, was she worried about the team?
mm-hmm.
And this was at an athletic company, or was she just projecting her own insecurities and trying to be protective? And like, you know, that's really where you gotta ask yourself, that's like, it's those opportunities to really look in the mirror and ask yourself what kind of leader I'm being. And when you are the leader that embodies what you want everybody else to be,
Mm-hmm.
holding on to your commitments, really being empathetic, actually asking people questions and caring about the answer with empathy. Like, these
Yeah.
things are embodied, they're in your energy.
Right.
And that's the stuff I do in my leadership trainings, by the way. And
Right.
that's the stuff that I think is really where people follow, or at least the people that you want to follow will follow.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I do want to make sure, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about who would be an ideal client for you. Who would be someone, if there's somebody that's listening and now what exactly are you expecting from them? Who is someone that you would see as like ideal, and someone again you could just frankly say, look, don't waste your time hitting the DMs, don't waste your time emailing me because it won't work out. I'll kind of give you the slate to open up to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, number one, if you're interested in what I talked about at all today, please find me on Instagram, Kendall Wallace 123. DM me, uh, DM me Ashwand plus playbook, and I will happily send you my playbook of over 100 exercises of how I plan my offsites, my in-person team get-togethers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's number one. Number two, actually, I just want, are most of the listeners, do you think they have like remote workforces, or do they are they in one place, do you think?
So it's a mix of both. Well, first of all, I do
Okay.
have to. It's as one, and it's a comment, so don't take that personal. But it's as one. But yeah, it's a mix of former athletes that got into business, and it's a mix of remote and entrepreneurs that are going out and doing their work and stuff like that. So
Okay. Aswand. I
it happens all
so
the
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it so much. But I would suggest too that people DM me and I'll see if I can help you. Listen, this is at a very unique time in my company. In fact, for the month of July, I have a special for virtual offsites specifically, where you get three for the price of one, which is pretty unheard of, pretty nuts. So if you're interested in that, by all means DM me. But yeah, I care. I mean, listen, I went over my experience earlier. I care more about helping teams. So I have, yes, these options, but like DM me with what you're challenged by, and I'm happy to hop on a free consultation and see how I can help you and provide some value to you. I mean, that's what I care about, because at the end of the day, I don't want tension in teams. I don't want misalignment. I want to help you guys create the alignment you need. So happy to just yeah, just DM me Aswand, and if you want the playbook, you can ask for that. Otherwise, you just DM me and we can set up time for an intake call and give you some free advice and see
now.
and go from there.
Is Instagram the best way, or is there an email or website that they could find you on and anything like that? You can
Yeah,
kind of put on.
Instagram's the best way. Instagram's the best way. Otherwise, you can message me at Kendall, that's with two L's, at executiveoffsites.com.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay, so all of that will be included in the show notes as well. So the final thing, Kendall, that I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination just a little bit. I want you to pretend the version of you that just got fired from Facebook. I want you to kind of go back into that place a little bit and pretend that that young lady has come into the Zoom room. Just talk to her a little bit about what life is going to be. Give her some words of encouragement and will officially close.
Although you don't see it now, this is actually such a blessing, and acknowledge the tense experiences that you had because others are going through it. And you're going to help people either A, not have to go through it, or help them navigate it more effectively than you did by creating really bonding, joyous experiences for teams.
Amen. 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 You're helping a lot of people now, as we're again, like you kind of talked about earlier. We're in this AI world. We're in this world that's very transient. We're in this world where there's just a lot of jobs being shifted in a lot of different directions, a lot of needs not being people not being needed for this and that and all that sorts of things. So the work you do is incredibly important. Just keep at it. Looking forward to keeping up with your journey. I know you definitely gained a follower here. So I'll be sure to
Oh,
find you on Instagram
yeah.
once we done this
You are
recording.
awesome. We'll have to, next time I'm in South Florida, we'll have to do some sort of workout or something like that. Even
Damn sure
that'd be
will.
fun
Will.
actually.
Yes,
Host a
you. I am
little
one
beach, like
and
a
yeah,
little beach thing, man. Yeah.
I'm a runner, so I'm gonna do a lot of 5Ks, 10Ks. I'm actually training for a marathon, so
Wow.
we'll definitely do. most of the people that I actually communicate with outside of teaching and all that are runners and people that work out. I've had several triathletes on the show, so now I got to do one now, and I got to train for that and all that. So, like you said, that fitness component to
Yeah.
everything work related. When you start to get people out of their comfort zone and you start to get people in a place where you're not just talking dollars and cents, you're actually seeing who's willing to work their ass off. I used to actually work at an Orange Theory, and we had those
Yeah.
competitions, and we were at the beach doing volleyball, doing all sorts of activities. It's amazing to see it, Kendall. When I saw what you
Yeah.
were doing, it's amazing to see how people just come together and these small little things, and it creates such a unity and a cohesiveness within that organization where if you're a business owner, I'm telling you, it's worth the investment. Just fucking do it, man. You have to do it, or you're just gonna get bogged down with money and you just be ruined with
Well,
what the world requires of you, you know?
I I think the other thing just that business owners might appreciate too is like there is a level of almost not knowing how to manage people's emotions and
Yeah,
not knowing how to manage this, like it's almost like out of depth, like whoa,
right.
I don't know what to do here. And that's
Yeah,
when you bring in a professional. Honestly, that's when these types of experiences are really about maintaining that and improving the health of the org. Almost think of it like a health checkup.
yeah,
That's really what it comes down to, because while leaders can be experts at so many things, you can't be an expert at everything. That's why you have coaches to bring it in and kind of eliminate any viruses while you're also elevating the health. And yeah.
yeah. So we do. You listen. I'm one DM away, man. You just let me know, but yeah, we'll get together and do something.
Love
With
it.
all that, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
Thank you.